I always been a lover of indie games. To me, they are some of the few products left today that actually try to offer something unique, keeping the purity of gaming alive instead of being made by billion-dollar corporations just looking to sink their teeth into your wallet. I really want to give more coverage to these games because there are so many hidden gems out there, often overshadowed by the massive AAA titles released every day. And I recently had the chance to play The Irony, a 2D action horror game developed by Sylopon, with 3D low-poly graphics highly inspired by the classics of our generation, such as Silent Hill or Alone in the Dark. When I first saw the trailer, it definitely caught my eye, but it also set off some alarm bells. It's like, when a new Souls-like comes out, like seriously, please stop making Souls-like for 5 minutes. Jesus! My first thought was, oh great, another clone trying to copy what Rose Engine did with Signalis. Basically a Signalis-like, designed to make quick money. At first glance, the aesthetic is very similar. It used that low-poly 2D, 3D, hybrid style, CRT filters, and specific lighting to give us those retro vibes from the golden era, you know, when we didn't have to worry about paying taxes. I jumped into the playtest to give my honest opinion on this whole new indie title, looking for the good, the bad, and everything in between to leave some feedback for the developers.
I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well.
You play as an inspector for a private military company sent to investigate the abandoned labs of Underdog Corps. They were performing illegal human experiments because, well, you know, that's how horror plots work. Experiments go wrong, people turn into monsters, and a deadly virus is released that could wipe the entire humanity. And of course, they decide to send one single agent instead of, I don't know, the whole fucking Delta Force. Oh no, they tried that in Resident Evil and it didn't end up really well.
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
I'm scared to death.
The first thing you notice is that while the graphics and art style scream Signalis, the gameplay is actually a side-scroller. And right away we are introduced to the melee combat, which features parries. Parries. Oh yeah. In terms of gameplay, this title actually draws more inspiration from Dead Space and the Callisto Protocol. It focuses heavily on melee combat and counterattacks triggered by perfectly timing your defense against enemy strikes. As you move through the area, you find an audio log that explains how your firearm works.
It didn't die. We shot that fucker right between the eyes and it didn't die. Smith had to shoot its fucking arms and legs off. For God's sake, send help!
Unlike other horror games, your weapons isn't just for killing, its main purpose is to slow down and dismember your enemy's legs. Sounds familiar? Exactly, it's straight out of Dead Space, where we chop the necromorph limbs to avoid becoming an engineer sandwich. We even have the classic quarantine rooms that worked as enemy gauntlets in Dead Space. You can also open and close doors to block enemies from entering your room or to slow their advance. Since the combat is so melee focused, it allows you to plan your encounters, learn the enemy patterns, and land perfect parries to rip them apart. It's suddenly quite refreshing not being 100% dependent on the weapons and the ammo, just to get past an enemy blocking your way. Plus, you can dodge roll under your enemies to land some backstabs to them, so it's quite good. It's like Dark Souls. The loading zones happen mostly in the elevators and between floors, and even though the environment is 2D, the game makes great use of the camera angles, darkness, and the lighting to make you feel that you're constantly being watched, like there's a threat stalking you at every turn. The limited field vision, not knowing what's beyond the screen, in the shadows, or if something is about to drop from the ceiling, creates some serious tension. And our blonde protagonist can parry like she's in Sekiro and destroy everyone, which feels incredibly satisfying once you master it. The director even took inspiration from Marathon for the environmental art, Bungie's upcoming game, which funnily enough has the same art director who worked on the original Dead Space series. You can even stomp your enemies in the ground like in Dead Space, imagining that they are Geoff Keighley trying to sell you high guard.
I've played it, and after you...
The gameplay felt a bit clunky at first, but keep in mind that I play a really early version in development, which is basically the first 30 minutes of the game, so I can't say too much yet. However, the game looks very promising. I felt hooked the entire moment, carefully exploring every corner of the map, and while layout seems complicated at first, it's actually quite intuitive once you start moving, filled with shortcuts that give you quick access to previous areas. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the downsides from this game. First of all is the performance. I know the game is still very early stage in development, and there's a lot of optimization work ahead. And as you can probably tell, my PC could barely maintain a decent 30 FPS. The second issue is the lighting. Having dark zones that make you tense, not knowing if something is about to jump out at you, is brilliant. However, sometimes it was hard to even tell where the enemies were. In complete darkness, my flashlight didn't do much because it was constantly swaying with my character's movement. It's a cool immersion detail, but it gets confusing during combat. I often had to lure the enemies into lit areas just to see what kind of attacks they were throwing at me so I could counter them. This could easily be fixed by making the flashlight track or illuminate the enemies more effectively. The third detail is the controls, specifically aiming. Instead of using the mouse to aim up and down, you're forced to use the keyboard to adjust your size, which feels pretty clunky. I also love to see smoother transitions between animations, like going from running to aiming or rolling back into a shooting stance, just to make it feel more fluid and intuitive. Oh, and there's one more thing. When you die, you have to complete this stupid reCAPTCHA to hit continue. Nah, just kidding. I actually found this to be a very unique and interesting detail mechanic. According to the developer, this will actually play a significant role in narrative, and honestly, it's the first time I ever been excited to complete a reCAPTCHA. And it's all thanks to video games. I love it when a developer takes some boring real-world concepts and turn them into something entertaining. Overall, I think The Irony is a brilliant prospect. With its release scheduled for 2027, I'm genuinely anxious to see what Sylopon does next. I want to see how much variety they can bring to the gameplay and level design, so it just doesn't become like a repetitive loop of find the key item, kill the enemies, open the door, repeat. And as much as I liked parries, you need to evolve your combat into something more to avoid becoming repetitive. If you plan to make this game longer than 5 hours, of course. One thing I love about Signalis was the stealth mechanics and those brain-melting puzzles that remind me of the first Silent Hill, you know? The ones where you would stare at the screen for an hour because you had no idea what word you're reading. Like, what the fuck is this? At 8 a.m, the demon is going to awake. At 9 a.m, the time is going to stop. And at 10 a.m, I'm gonna do your mom. Fuck this. I would also love to see The Irony distance itself from Signalis by offering a wide variety of environments and ecosystems. I want the adventure to feel like a journey where you will need to adapt to new situations and challenges as the narrative evolves into something deep and captivating. At the end of the day, this is not the Signalis 2 everyone is looking for. Even though the inspiration is obvious in the aesthetics, when it comes to the story, the tone, it clearly wants to be something different. It wants to be its own thing, and that's great. We don't need games that just copy the success of others. I'm officially on board of this train and I can't wait to see where it leads. And if the developers are watching this, please bring this game to consoles. This is exactly the kind of game I would love to play on my Nintendo Switch in bed at night, with headphones on, completely immersed in the atmosphere. If this game caught your interest, you can support the project by adding it to your Steam wishlist and joining their Discord to give your own feedback to the team. And if you want to see more coverage of indie games like this, hit the like button and subscribe, it's free. And our leader community is growing every day. I couldn't be more grateful for the support you have shown to my videos. With nothing more to say, keep playing and I'll see you in the next one.